Before I start this video, I want to put out a warning that I mention domestic abuse. If you are uncomfortable with these topics, please avoid this video. Thank you. In the beginning of the semester, I watched a movie called Millennium Mambo, which takes place in Taipei in the early 2000s as the new millennium is forming. In this video, I will be discussing the economic and technological impact on domestic abuse that is shown throughout the movie. Millennium Mambo was created in 2001 and directed by Hsiao-hsien. It follows Vicky, a young woman living in Taipei, as she navigates a troubled relationship with her possessive and abusive boyfriend, Hao. The film portrays her emotional struggles and alienation set against the backdrop of Taipei's vibrant nightlife. Vicky works at a nightclub and often drifts through fleeting, unsatisfying encounters. Throughout the film, she reflects on her turbulent relationship with Hao, torn between the desire to escape and her emotional dependence on him. The plot is fragmented and non-linear, exploring themes of isolation, love, and dissatisfaction with life. The film ends ambiguously, with Vicky attempting to move on but uncertain of her future. Now that we have a basic sense of the story, I'll start with the political and economic background of Taiwan. In the late 1980s, Taiwan was undergoing significant transformations, with a shift toward a more democratic system following the end of martial law. In 1996, Taiwan held its first direct presidential election, marking a milestone in democratic development. The political situation with China remained tense, and this contributed to uncertainty in the country, but Taipei's economic growth was largely insulated from direct political risks due to Taiwan's strong global trade connections and competitive industries. From 1997 to 1998, there was the Asian financial crisis that impacted Taiwan's economy, though the country was less affected than other regional economies like Thailand, Indonesia, and South Korea. Taiwan's relatively conservative banking system, strong export sector, and large foreign exchange reserves helped it weather the storm better than any other countries in the region. However, Taipei's stock market took a hit, and the overall economic growth slowed, but the economy quickly rebounded by 1999. The financial sector in Taipei grew significantly, with increased banking activities, stock market development, and integration with international markets. The Taiwan Stock Exchange, or TWSE, saw increased activity, and Taipei became more connected to global financial systems. Taiwan was also working to liberalize its financial markets and open up to more foreign investment, laying the groundwork for further globalization of its economy. Taiwan, especially in the late 1990s, solidified its position as a global manufacturing powerhouse, particularly in electronics and information technology. Taipei became a central location for the semiconductor and computer hardware industries, with companies like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, and Acer leading the charge. This period was marked by a rapid expansion of high-tech industries. The Taiwan Miracle was in full effect during this time as the country transitioned from labor-intensive industries to more capital and knowledge-intensive ones. With economic growth came a rise in the cost of living, particularly in Taipei. Housing prices, for instance, began to increase in the late 1990s as demand for residential space grew among the city's rapid urbanization and population increase. This led to concerns about income inequality and affordability, which became more apparent in the early 2000s. This rise in cost of living contributes directly to Vicky's isolation and abuse while she is with Hao. She never finished high school, since Hao never woke her up for her exams, and eventually his manipulation leads to her only option being to live with him. She relies on him for financial stability, and her only way to make money is through being a hostess at a strip club. Having not graduated from high school, she is unable to get a stable job and is forced into a cycle of abuse despite her hopes and dreams of escaping and becoming fulfilled in her life. They also live in a small apartment together, which may be an indication that affordability of apartments and homes increased drastically to where they could only afford a small apartment for themselves. Despite Taiwan's modernization and economic advancements, traditional gender roles continue to affect the lives of women like Vicky, especially in this movie. The changing economic landscape has not led to significant advancements in gender equality in personal relationships. Women like Vicky, who are seeking independence and a sense of self, are often still caught in the roles of caregiver and object of desire, trapped in relationships that can quickly turn abusive, much like this one with Hsiao-hsien. Since Hsiao-hsien is the breadwinner of the household, this gives him a power dynamic over Vicky. Since he puts the roof over her head, Vicky continues to put up with his abuse instead of escaping. His jealousy and his economic power over Vicky justifies to him that he can treat her the way that he wants, such as smelling her when she gets home to make sure she isn't with other guys at work, throwing her phone when he is angry with her, and physically restraining her in public and private settings. Vicky feels powerless in these situations and rarely resists due to the power dynamic of the relationship. Another large part of the movie is how budding technology impacts Hsiao-hsien's abuse towards Vicky. Technology subtly impacts Vicky's relationship with Hsiao-hsien primarily through the ways it mediates communication and reinforces the emotional distance and control in their relationship. While the film doesn't focus on technology in a traditional sense, its presence plays a significant role in shaping the characters' emotional landscapes, particularly in the following ways. Hsiao-hsien uses technology, particularly his phone, as a means to control and monitor Vicky. There is a pivotal moment when Hsiao-hsien aggressively interrupts a phone conversation Vicky has with another man. Also exerts emotional dominance by dictating who she can and cannot communicate with. This reflects how technology, specifically cell phones, can be used as an instrument of power and control in relationships, enabling Hsiao-hsien to isolate Vicky and assert possessiveness. The constant presence of phones and the ability to contact one another immediately, even in times of emotional crisis, creates a paradox where communication should bring people closer, but instead contributes to Vicky's emotional isolation. While technology keeps them connected, it does not create a meaningful intimacy. Instead, it amplifies their toxic dynamic, as the technology allows Hsiao-hsien to remain constantly in contact with Vicky, intensifying his jealousy and possessiveness. Constantly being contacted by Hsiao-hsien is very emotionally manipulative and very probably exhausting on her part. The film's setting in the modern, tech-driven city of Taipei also symbolizes the alienation that comes with rapid urbanization and technological progress. Vicky's experiences in the digital, club-centric nightlife scene often feel shallow and fragmented, much like the disconnected nature of her relationship with Hsiao-hsien. The neon lights, the nightclub scenes, and the sense of time slipping away in the city reflect the sense of detachment and existential emptiness that technology and modern life often bring. Although it's not overtly emphasized in the movie, there are moments in the film where Vicky seems to be filmed or otherwise observed by others, hinting at the idea of surveillance. While not a direct reference to technology like social media or digital tracking, these moments suggest how modern technology in all of its forms plays a role in creating a sense of being constantly watched or controlled by other people. Finally, technology can often increase trade of illicit drugs and substances, which is what Hsiao-hsien uses to keep control over Vicky. Substance abuse is a large factor in many domestic violence cases because it alters the victim's state of mind, further controlling their behavior and actions. Though not overtly violent in the traditional sense, this psychological manipulation contributes to the abusive atmosphere in Vicky's relationship. To conclude this essay, I have 3 main points that contribute to domestic violence in the film. 1. Technological disconnection. 2. Economic pressure. And 3. Gender inequality because of the economic pressure. For technological disconnection, mobile phones and other technologies, while offering constant communication, amplify emotional detachment between Vicky and her abusive boyfriend Hsiao-hsien. Technology is used more for control and manipulation than fostering real intimacy, which deepens the abuse. For economic pressure, the growing economic pressures of urban life, along with a consumer-driven culture, create a sense of alienation and stress. Hsiao-hsien's abusive behavior is partially driven by his frustrations with economic insecurity and personal dissatisfaction, while Vicky's own struggles to find stability are compounded by these pressures. Finally, and probably the most important, gender inequality is a main factor into the domestic abuse during the film. Despite Taiwan's modernization, traditional gender roles persist, leaving women like Vicky vulnerable to abusive relationships. The lack of emotional support and societal structures to address these inequalities contributes to the continuation of abuse. In short, Millennium Mambo emphasizes how the economic and technological changes in Taiwan play a key role in the dynamics of domestic abuse. With Taipei rapidly urbanizing at the turn of the millennium, the film explores how modernization and consumer culture contribute to emotional isolation, disconnection, and gender inequality, conditions that enable domestic violence. Millennium Mambo portrays how Taiwan's economic shifts and technological advances, rather than improving relationships, contribute to emotional distance, power imbalances, and cycles of domestic abuse. This video essay aims not only to analyze Millennium Mambo, but to raise awareness about the ongoing issue of domestic abuse in our own societies. It's a call to recognize the signs, to support those who are suffering in silence, and to challenge the social structures that perpetuate these cycles. If you or a loved one are a victim of domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. Thank you.